Emily never thought her ordinary Tuesday morning would take such an unexpected turn. She had just returned from her early college class, planning to spend the rest of the day finishing an assignment and maybe watching a movie later in the evening. As she placed her bag on the chair, her phone buzzed with a call from her older sister, Claire. I need a huge favor," Claire's voice came through, sounding urgent. Emily frowned. "What happened?" "I can't make it to work today. I'm supposed to nanny for a family, but something urgent came up with a friend, and I promised I'd help. Can you cover for me just for today?" Emily blinked in surprise. She wasn't used to filling in for her sister. Claire often worked as a nanny for different families in the city, but Emily had never joined her on the job. "Me? Claire, I don't even know the first thing about babysitting," she said, half laughing, half nervous. "It's not hard," Claire assured quickly. "It's just one little girl, really sweet, 5 years old. You'll be fine. All you need to do is play with her, maybe help her with lunch, and keep her safe until her dad comes home. That's it? Please, Em. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important." Emily sighed. She wasn't exactly comfortable around children. She liked them but never had to take care of one for hours. Still, she hated to disappoint Claire, who had always been there for her. After a long pause, she said, "All right. Just for today." "Thank you." Claire breathed with relief. "I'll text you the address. You'll love the kid, trust me." Moments later, Emily received the message and her eyebrows rose as she read the location. It was in one of the most upscale neighborhoods in the city, a place she had only ever passed through while riding the bus. She thought about the fancy houses there, the kind with tall gates and gardens that looked like they belonged in magazines. A little nervous but curious, Emily got ready. She pulled her hair into a simple ponytail, put on a comfortable shirt and jeans, and packed a small notebook in her bag in case she had time to write during the day. Then she left for the address. The ride was filled with thoughts. She wondered what the family would be like. Would the child like her? Would she make mistakes? She reminded herself it was just for one day. Nothing more. When she finally arrived, her mouth parted in astonishment. The house was enormous, with tall glass windows that reflected the afternoon sun, a wide driveway, and a garden with neatly trimmed hedges. Emily hesitated at the gate, checking the address again to make sure she hadn't gone to the wrong place. "This can't be it," she whispered. But it was. She rang the bell, and moments later, the door opened. A woman in her late 50s, likely the housekeeper, greeted her warmly. "You must be Claire's sister," she said with a smile. "Yes, I'm Emily," she replied, trying not to stare at the grand interior behind the woman. The hallway was decorated with polished wood, paintings, and soft lights that made everything look elegant. "Come in," the woman said kindly. "Lily is in the playroom. She's been waiting." Emily followed, her shoes clicking softly on the marble floor. She felt out of place, as though she had stepped into a world she didn't belong to. When they entered the playroom, Emily's nervousness eased a little. There, on a soft carpet surrounded by blocks and dolls, sat Lily, the little girl she would be looking after. She had curly brown hair tied in 2 small ponytails and bright, curious eyes. "Hi," Lily said, standing up. "Hi, Lily," Emily replied with a gentle smile. "I'm Emily. I'm here to play with you today." The child studied her for a moment, then smiled widely. "Okay. Want to see my castle?" She pointed to the blocks she had stacked up. Emily chuckled. "Of course." Within minutes, the tension Emily had carried melted away. Lily was cheerful, chatty, and full of imagination. They built block towers together, played pretend with her dolls, and even colored in a picture book. Emily found herself laughing more than she had expected, surprised by how quickly she connected with the little girl. Time seemed to pass faster than she thought. At one point, Lily asked, "Do you like stories?" "Very much," Emily answered. "Then I'll tell you one," Lily said proudly, launching into a story about a princess who lived in a castle guarded by a friendly dragon. Emily listened attentively, nodding and clapping at the right moments, making Lily giggle with joy. When it was time for lunch, the housekeeper helped set up a small meal. Emily sat with Lily at the table, encouraging her to finish her vegetables. She had never imagined herself in this role, but it didn't feel as difficult as she had feared. During a quiet moment, Emily looked around the dining room. Everything was spotless and elegant, with chandeliers hanging above and fine china on the shelves. She wondered what kind of people lived here. Clearly, they were wealthy, but she thought little of it. To her, it was just another family, and she was only there for a few hours. After lunch, they returned to the playroom. Lily wanted to draw, so Emily joined her, sketching a little house while Lily filled her paper with rainbows and stars. "You draw nice," Lily said, tilting her head to look at Emily's drawing. "Thank you. Yours is beautiful too," Emily replied honestly. The afternoon sun filtered through the window, and for the first time, Emily felt completely at ease. She had walked in nervous and uncertain, but Lily's warmth had made her forget all of that. Still, a thought lingered at the back of her mind: who was Lily's father? Claire hadn't said much, only that he was busy and worked a lot. Emily figured he was probably some businessman who earned enough to afford this big house. She didn't care to know more, it didn't matter. As the clock moved toward evening, Emily tidied the toys with Lily and read her a short storybook before nap time. The little girl leaned against her, eyelids growing heavy. Emily's voice softened as she read, and soon, Lily was asleep, her small hand resting on Emily's arm. A strange warmth filled Emily's heart. She hadn't expected to enjoy this day, but here she was, sitting quietly beside a child she had only just met, feeling as though they had known each other for much longer. Emily didn't know that beyond the walls of that grand house, her life was quietly beginning to change. She thought she was just filling in for her sister for one day. She thought it was just babysitting. But fate had other plans she could not yet see. For now, all she knew was that she had kept her promise to her sister and made a new little friend. What she didn't know was that soon, she would meet the man behind this house, the father who had been watching over his daughter's happiness and whose story would soon intertwine with hers in ways she never imagined. The sun was dipping lower in the sky when Emily heard the sound of the front door opening. She looked up from the playroom, where Lily was showing her a picture she had just drawn. At first, Emily thought it might be the housekeeper, but then she heard a man's voice calling gently, "Lily, I'm home." The little girl's face lit up instantly. "Daddy," she squealed, dropping her crayons and running out of the playroom. Emily froze for a moment, suddenly aware that she was about to meet the child's father. She quickly stood up, brushing her hands on her jeans, and followed Lily into the hallway. There, standing tall in a neatly pressed suit, was a man in his mid-30s. His hair was dark, his posture confident, and yet the way he bent down to scoop Lily into his arms showed a softness that only a loving father could have. Lily wrapped her little arms around his neck, laughing. "I missed you, Daddy," she said. "I missed you too, sweetheart," he replied, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Then, his gaze shifted toward Emily, who stood quietly near the doorway. Emily felt her heart skip. She hadn't expected to meet him so soon. She forced a polite smile. "Hello. I'm Emily. Claire's sister. I was just filling in for her today." The man studied her for a second, his expression calm but slightly curious. Then he smiled faintly. "I see. I should thank you, then. Lily seems very happy." Emily shrugged lightly, trying to seem relaxed. "She's wonderful." We built castles, colored rainbows, and read a story. She kept me entertained all day. Lily giggled and nodded eagerly. Daddy, Emily is fun. Can she come again? Emily chuckled, feeling a little embarrassed by the child's request. I think your daddy and Claire will decide that. The man set Lily down gently. Why don't you go show Maria your new drawing, he suggested, referring to the housekeeper. Lily ran off happily, leaving Emily and the man alone in the hallway. Emily shifted her weight awkwardly, unsure what to say. She had expected a quick hello, maybe a polite thank you, but now she found herself standing in front of him in this grand house, feeling very out of place. You've really made her day, he said finally, his voice warm but steady. It's not always easy for her to open up to new people. Emily softened at his words. She's an amazing kid. Honestly, she made my day easier than I expected. I was a little nervous at first, but she made me feel welcome. His eyebrows lifted slightly, as if impressed by her honesty. Most people don't admit to being nervous, he remarked. Emily laughed softly. Well, I don't have much experience with children. Claire's the expert, not me. I'm just a student who got dragged into babysitting duty. Something flickered in his eyes, amusement, perhaps. Dragged in, huh? Well, I'm glad you were. She clearly enjoyed your company. There was a pause, comfortable yet filled with a strange awareness. Emily wasn't sure why she felt so nervous around him. Maybe it was his presence, calm, confident, but also kind. She wasn't used to meeting men who carried themselves that way. I should probably head out now, she said quickly, breaking the silence. Thank you for trusting me with Lily today. It's I who should thank you, he replied smoothly. I'm Daniel, by the way. Emily gave a small nod. Nice to meet you, Daniel. He extended his hand, and she shook it briefly. His handshake was firm but not overbearing, and for a moment, Emily found herself looking into his steady eyes before quickly pulling away. As she gathered her bag, Lily ran back into the hallway holding her picture. Emily, look. I added more stars. Emily crouched down to admire the drawing. That's beautiful, Lily. You're a real artist. The girl beamed. Will you come again? Emily smiled softly. Maybe someday. Daniel watched the exchange quietly, something thoughtful in his gaze. When Emily finally stepped outside, the cool evening air greeted her. She let out a deep breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. The house, the child, the father, it was all so different from her own simple life. She shook her head and reminded herself, it was only one day. She probably wouldn't see them again. But as she walked down the path toward the gate, Daniel stood by the window, watching her leave, his mind already turning. He wasn't used to strangers entering their lives. He had kept things private since his wife passed away. Yet this young woman, with her easy laugh and genuine way of speaking, had brought light into Lily's day and maybe even into his own. That evening, Emily returned home and found Claire waiting for her in the kitchen. So? How was it? Claire asked eagerly. Emily dropped her bag onto a chair and let out a dramatic sigh. You didn't tell me they lived in a palace. Claire laughed. Oh, come on. It's just a nice house. Nice? Claire, the floor was marble. The doors looked like they belonged in a museum. Claire chuckled again. Okay, maybe it's a little fancy. But how was Lily? Emily's expression softened immediately. She's amazing. So smart and sweet. I actually had fun. And the dad? Claire asked, raising an eyebrow. Emily frowned at her sister's teasing tone. Professional. Polite. That's it? I was just filling in, remember? Claire smirked but said nothing more. Emily went to bed later that night, her mind replaying the events of the day. She thought about Lily's laughter, the way her small hand had rested on hers, the joy in her little stories. She thought about Daniel too, though she tried not to linger on that. He was just another parent, and she was just a stand-in nanny. Their worlds couldn't be more different. Yet somewhere deep inside, she felt there was something unusual about the day. It wasn't just ordinary babysitting. It felt significant. Meanwhile, Daniel sat in his study, going over documents, but his thoughts kept drifting back to the young woman he had met earlier. Emily, Claire's sister. She was different from the people he usually met in his business circles. She hadn't tried to impress him, hadn't seemed nervous about the grandeur of the house, and had treated him not as a wealthy man but simply as Lily's father. That simple, honest interaction left an impression he couldn't ignore. As Lily slept peacefully upstairs, holding the drawing she had proudly shown Emily, Daniel leaned back in his chair and thought, perhaps he wanted to see her again. And though Emily didn't know it yet, this small encounter was only the beginning of something far bigger than she could imagine. The next morning, Emily sat at the breakfast table with her sister, Claire. She was stirring her tea absent-mindedly, her thoughts still lingering on yesterday's unexpected experience. Claire noticed her silence and smirked. So, you met Daniel? Emily glanced up. Daniel. The father, Claire said casually, taking a bite of toast. That's his name. Daniel Hart. Emily nodded slowly. Yes, I met him. He seemed nice. Claire raised an eyebrow, her curiosity sharp. That's all you have to say? Just nice. Emily shrugged. What else do you want me to say? He's a dad. He came home, said hello, thanked me, and that's it? End of story. Claire leaned closer. You really don't know, do you? Emily frowned. Know what? Claire chuckled, shaking her head. Wow, you really have no idea. Emily, Daniel isn't just some dad. He's a millionaire. One of the most successful businessmen in the city. He owns companies, investments, and half the new tech buildings downtown. Emily's spoon clinked against the side of her cup as she froze. Wait, what? Yeah, Claire said with a grin. Daniel Hart. The Daniel Hart. You didn't recognize him. Emily blinked, her mind racing. Of course not. Why would I recognize him? I don't read business magazines or watch news about millionaires. Yesterday, I thought I was just in some nice house. I didn't think about who he was. Claire laughed at her shocked expression. I can't believe you talked to him without knowing. You probably treated him like an ordinary guy, didn't you? Emily groaned, covering her face with her hands. Oh no. I did. I told him I was nervous about babysitting. I even said you dragged me into it. I must have sounded ridiculous. But Claire only smiled. Honestly, that might have been the best thing you could have done. Everyone else he meets probably tries too hard to impress him. But you just acted normal. He probably liked that. Emily wasn't so sure. Her stomach twisted at the thought of how casually she had spoken to someone so important. She imagined him going back to his office, surrounded by powerful people, shaking his head at the memory of the clueless college student who admitted she had no experience with kids. Still, she couldn't stop thinking about Lily. The child's laughter had stayed with her, bright and real. And she remembered the way Daniel had looked at her, not with judgment, but with calm curiosity. For the rest of the day, she tried to push the thought aside, diving into her assignments. But her mind kept wandering back. On the other side of the city, Daniel sat in his office, a tall glass building overlooking the bustling streets below. His desk was stacked with papers, his phone constantly buzzing with calls, yet his thoughts kept drifting. His assistant, Mark, noticed his distraction. You seem quiet today, Mark said cautiously. Daniel leaned back in his chair. I was just thinking. Mark smirked. That's unusual. You're always thinking. Daniel gave a small chuckle. Not about business this time. Mark raised an eyebrow but didn't pry. Daniel tapped his pen against the desk. He had met countless people, investors, business partners, clients, but yesterday had felt different. The young woman, Emily, had no idea who he was. She hadn't looked at him with expectation or calculation. She had spoken honestly, even casually, like he was just another parent. It had been refreshing. And then there was Lily. His daughter had been happier than usual, her little eyes sparkling as she told him about castles and rainbows. Emily had given her that joy, even in a few short hours. It made Daniel curious. Who was she, really? That evening, Claire received a call from Daniel. She answered quickly, expecting the usual confirmation about her next babysitting shift. But Daniel's question surprised her. Your sister, he began carefully. Emily. Will she be available again to watch Lily sometime this week? Claire hesitated. Emily. She was only filling in. She's busy with college. I understand, Daniel said politely. But Lily really enjoyed her company. If Emily has time, even for a few hours, I'd appreciate it. Claire smiled to herself. I'll ask her. When she told Emily about the call, Emily's eyes widened. He asked for me? Specifically? Yes, Claire replied, crossing her arms. Looks like someone made an impression. Emily shook her head quickly. No, no, I can't. Claire, I already embarrassed myself once. If I go back now, knowing who he really is, I'll just make it worse. But Claire nudged her gently. Or maybe you'll realize he's just a person, like you did before. Emily, you made Lily happy. That's what matters. Don't overthink it. Emily bit her lip. The thought of returning made her both nervous and strangely excited. She told herself it was only about Lily, the sweet little girl who had already found a place in her heart. Still, she couldn't ignore the tiny spark of curiosity about Daniel. The following weekend, Emily agreed to fill in once more. As she arrived at the house, Lily ran to her with open arms. Emily, she shouted with joy. Emily hugged her tightly, feeling warmth spread through her chest. I missed you too, Lily. This time, Daniel was already home when she arrived. He greeted her politely, but his eyes held a subtle hint of relief. Thank you for coming again. It means a lot. Emily nodded quickly, trying to act natural. I'm happy to spend time with her. She's wonderful. Throughout the day, Emily noticed how Daniel seemed to watch from a distance. He didn't interfere, but she could feel his gaze now and then, thoughtful and observant. He wasn't looking at her the way powerful men often looked at others with authority or pride. Instead, his eyes seemed curious, almost gentle. At one point, as Lily played with her dolls, Daniel joined Emily in the living room. She laughs more when you're here, he said softly. Emily glanced at him, surprised. She's easy to laugh with. She has the brightest imagination I've ever seen. Daniel gave a small smile. It's been hard for her, adjusting. Losing her mother, it hasn't been easy. Emily's heart ached at his words. I'm so sorry, she whispered. He nodded, his expression calm but tinged with sadness. That's why I value people who bring her joy. And yesterday, she couldn't stop talking about you. Emily felt her cheeks warm, though she tried to brush it off. She's the one who made me happy, not the other way around. For a moment, their eyes met, and Emily felt a strange connection she couldn't explain. She quickly looked away, focusing on Lily's laughter echoing through the room. She reminded herself again, this wasn't her world. Daniel was wealthy, important, living a life far removed from her own. She was just a temporary visitor in his story. But deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was shifting. That night, when Emily left, Daniel stood at the doorway, watching her walk down the path once again. He realized he was already hoping for the next time he would see her. And Emily, as she rode the bus back home, stared out of the window with her heart unusually full. She told herself it was because of Lily. But somewhere in her mind, Daniel's calm voice and steady eyes kept replaying. The truth had been revealed: he wasn't just a single dad. He was a millionaire, someone whose name carried weight in the city. Yet, strangely, knowing that didn't scare her as much as she thought it would. Because when she looked at him, she didn't see a businessman. She saw a father who loved his daughter deeply. And perhaps, just perhaps, a man who had started to notice her in a way that went beyond simple gratitude. What began as a simple one-day favor was turning into something much bigger, something Emily hadn't planned, but which life seemed to be unfolding before her eyes. Emily told herself she wouldn't be going back again. After all, it had started as a one-day favor, and she had already done more than she promised. Twice now, she had stepped into that grand house, played with Lily, and left with a heart fuller than she expected. It was enough, she thought. Her world and Daniel's were too different, and she didn't want to get attached. But life often works in strange ways. A few days later, Claire came into Emily's room holding her phone. "Guess what?" Daniel called again. Emily looked up from her notebook. "For you." "For you," Claire said, grinning. "He asked if you could come. He said Lily has been asking about you every day." Emily's heart skipped. She tried to stay calm. "Claire, I don't think I should. You're the nanny, not me. He probably just feels awkward saying no to his daughter." Claire crossed her arms. "Or maybe he actually trusts you with Lily. Look, you're not stealing my job. I've got plenty of families. But this one clearly likes you. Emily, don't overthink it. Just go spend time with the little girl." Emily hesitated, biting her lip. She didn't want to admit how much she wanted to see Lily again, or how Daniel's calm voice had lingered in her mind since their last meeting. Finally, she gave in. "Fine. Just this once more." So that weekend, Emily found herself standing again at the tall gates of Daniel's house. As soon as she rang the bell, Lily came running, her little feet pattering across the floor. "Emily," she shouted with delight, throwing her arms around her legs. Emily bent down and hugged her tightly. "I missed you too, Lily." From behind, Daniel appeared, dressed more casually this time in a simple sweater and jeans. It made him seem less distant, less like the powerful man Claire had described. "Thank you for coming," he said politely. Emily gave a small smile. "It's hard to say no to this one." She ruffled Lily's hair, making the little girl giggle. This time, the day unfolded differently. Instead of staying only in the playroom, Daniel invited Emily and Lily to the garden. The wide yard was filled with trimmed hedges, a swing set, and a small fountain. Lily ran ahead, eager to show Emily her favorite spot under the tall oak tree. Emily followed, her eyes wide. "This is beautiful," she murmured, more to herself than to anyone else. Daniel walked beside her, hands in his pockets. "It's Lily's favorite place. She spends hours here, making up stories." True to his words, Lily was already pretending the tree was a castle tower. Emily joined in the game, holding an imaginary crown on her head, making Lily laugh so hard she almost fell over. Daniel watched them quietly, his lips curving into a faint smile. He hadn't seen his daughter this happy in a long time. Later, when Lily was busy with her dolls on the grass, Daniel sat on the garden bench. Emily joined him, wiping her hands after helping Lily with a snack. For a moment, neither spoke. The quietness of the garden, filled only with birdsong and Lily's laughter, felt strangely comforting. "You seem comfortable here," Daniel said finally. Emily chuckled softly. "I wasn't, at first. The house is so big, I felt like I didn't belong. But Lily, she makes it easy. She doesn't care about big houses or fancy things. She just wants someone to play with." Daniel looked at her thoughtfully. "That's true. She doesn't see the world the way adults do. Maybe that's why she likes you. You don't treat her like she's fragile or spoiled. You just see her." Emily glanced at him, surprised by the sincerity in his tone. "She deserves that. Every child does." Daniel's expression softened. "Not everyone thinks that way. Many people look at her and only see my wealth. Not her." Emily didn't know what to say. For the first time, she saw the loneliness hidden behind his calm exterior. He was a father who carried the weight of two roles, provider and nurturer, while surrounded by people who probably cared more about his fortune than his heart. Wanting to ease the moment, Emily smiled. "Well, I'm glad she doesn't know what money is yet. To her, the biggest treasure is a tower of blocks." Daniel chuckled at that, and for a brief moment, the tension lifted. The day continued with laughter and simple games. Emily read stories, helped Lily on the swing, and even joined her in drawing chalk pictures on the stone pathway. Daniel stayed nearby most of the time, not interfering, but his eyes always followed his daughter and often, without meaning to, lingered on Emily. In the evening, when Lily grew tired, Emily tucked her into bed with a gentle story. She sat by the edge, brushing the girl's hair back as she drifted into sleep. "You're really good with her," Daniel said quietly from the doorway. Emily looked up, startled. "I don't think I'm that good. She just makes it easy." He shook his head slightly. "No. It's you. She feels safe with you. That's rare." Emily felt her cheeks warm, but she quickly stood, gathering her things. "I should get going. Thank you for having me again." Daniel walked her to the door. For a moment, as she stepped out, their eyes met in the soft glow of the porch light. There was something unspoken in that silence, something Emily couldn't quite name. She gave him a small nod and hurried away, her heart beating faster than she liked to admit. On the bus ride home, Emily stared out the window, replaying the day in her mind. She told herself it was Lily who made her want to return, not Daniel. But she couldn't ignore the way he looked at her sometimes, not with arrogance, but with quiet appreciation, as though he saw her differently than others. She shook her head, trying to dismiss the thought. He was a millionaire, a man with responsibilities and a world far removed from her own. And she was just a college student who happened to be in the right place at the right time. But fate didn't care about worlds or wealth. Fate had already begun weaving their paths together. And as Daniel stood by the window once again, watching Emily disappear into the night, he knew one thing for certain: he wanted to see her again. Not because of what she did for Lily, but because of how she made him feel, reminded, for the first time in years, that life could be simple, warm, and real. Neither of them knew it yet, but what had begun as a chance favor was slowly becoming the start of something they would both carry in their hearts forever. Emily never thought a one-day favor could turn into something that touched her life so deeply. Yet weeks had passed, and she had visited Daniel's home more than once. Each time, she told herself it was for Lily. Each time, she promised herself it was the last. And yet, each time, she found herself saying yes when Lily's sweet little voice asked, "Will you come again?" The bond between her and Lily had grown strong. The little girl no longer saw Emily as just a babysitter, she saw her as a friend, someone she trusted to share secrets and dreams with. Emily, too, felt a sense of belonging whenever Lily slipped her tiny hand into hers or giggled at her silly jokes. But what Emily tried harder to ignore was the growing connection she felt with Daniel. She told herself they came from different worlds. She told herself not to think about the way his eyes softened when he looked at his daughter or the way he sometimes looked at her. Still, something unspoken hung between them. One crisp evening, Daniel invited Emily and Lily to have dinner together at the long dining table. Normally, Emily would eat with Lily in the playroom, while Daniel stayed busy with work or meetings. But this time, he wanted them all to sit together. The table was filled with simple dishes, not the fancy kind Emily had imagined wealthy families ate every night. Roast chicken, vegetables, warm bread. It felt homely, comforting. Lily chatted away happily, telling her father about the story Emily had read earlier, about a brave fox that protected its friends. Daniel listened with a smile, occasionally glancing at Emily, who laughed along with Lily's excitement. After dinner, Lily grew sleepy and Maria, the housekeeper, helped her to bed. The house grew quieter, leaving Daniel and Emily alone at the table. For a moment, Emily considered leaving quickly, but Daniel spoke first. "You've brought a lot of light into this house," he said gently. Emily blinked, surprised. "I haven't done anything special. I just play with her." "That's exactly it," Daniel replied. "You treat her like a child. Not as a responsibility, not as a burden, not as, my daughter, but just as Lily. She needs that." Emily looked down at her hands. His words touched her, but they also made her nervous. "She's the special one, not me. She's the reason I keep coming back." Daniel studied her quietly, his eyes thoughtful. "And yet, you keep coming back. Even when you don't have to." Emily felt her cheeks warm. She opened her mouth to speak but closed it again. She didn't know how to explain it herself. Before either of them could say more, the sound of Lily's laughter echoed faintly from her bedroom upstairs, reminding them both of what truly connected them. In the following days, Emily found herself thinking about Daniel more often than she wanted to admit. Not about his wealth or his reputation, those things didn't matter to her. She thought about the way he bent down to tie Lily's shoelaces, the way his eyes softened when his daughter hugged him, the quiet strength in his voice when he spoke about family. And Daniel, in his own way, thought about her too. In the middle of meetings, during long car rides, in the quiet of his study, he would recall Emily's laughter, her honesty, the way she looked at Lily as though the child was the most precious treasure in the world. It wasn't just about gratitude anymore. It was about something deeper, something he hadn't felt in a long time. One Saturday afternoon, Daniel invited Emily and Lily to visit a small park near the edge of the city. It wasn't a grand outing, not the kind of luxury people might expect from a man of his wealth. It was simple, a picnic under the trees, with sandwiches, juice, and a blanket spread on the grass. Emily found herself laughing freely as she chased Lily around the open field, both of them running until they were out of breath. Daniel watched, his heart swelling at the sight. It had been years since he had seen his daughter so carefree, and he knew it was because of Emily. When Lily finally tired and lay on the blanket drawing shapes in the air, Daniel turned to Emily. "You've changed our lives more than you realize." Emily shook her head. "I didn't mean to. I never planned any of this. I just wanted to help for one day." "And yet here you are," Daniel said softly. Their eyes met, and for a moment, neither looked away. Something gentle but strong passed between them, an understanding, a possibility, a beginning. Emily felt her heart race, but she also felt peace. It wasn't about riches or status. It was about the little girl who had brought them together, and the quiet strength of the man who had opened his home to her. Weeks turned into months. Emily continued to visit, sometimes to babysit, sometimes just to spend time with Lily. Slowly, her presence became part of the household, welcomed not only by the little girl but also by Daniel. Maria would often smile knowingly when she saw Emily walk in, sensing something blossoming that neither of them fully admitted yet. One evening, as Emily was leaving, Daniel walked her to the gate as usual. The night air was cool, and the street was quiet. He paused before she stepped out. "Emily," he said softly. She turned, curious. "Yes." He hesitated, as though choosing his words carefully. "I know our worlds are different. And I know this began as something simple. But I don't want to pretend anymore. You've become important not just to Lily, but to me." Emily's breath caught. She hadn't expected him to say it out loud, though she had felt it in the unspoken moments between them. "I don't care about the differences," she whispered honestly. "I only care about what feels real. And this, it feels real." Daniel's eyes softened, relief washing over his face. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to smile fully, not as a businessman, but as a man opening his heart. From that day, everything shifted. Emily was no longer just the sister who filled in for one day. She was part of their story, part of their family. Lily, of course, was the happiest of all. She often held Emily's hand and asked innocently, "You'll always stay, right?" And Emily would smile, squeezing her hand gently. "Yes, Lily. I'll always be here." The house that once felt too big and too quiet slowly filled with warmth again, not because of wealth or luxury, but because of laughter, love, and connection. What began as a simple favor had changed all their lives. Emily had stepped into the role of a nanny for just one day, unaware that the single dad was a millionaire. But what truly mattered was not his fortune, it was his heart, and the little girl who had unknowingly tied them together. And so, their story unfolded, a story of chance, of unexpected paths, of finding family where one least expected it. A story of a new beginning.